The attack which killed Stephen Lawrence was carried out in seconds. It's taken 18 years for anyone to be convicted of the murder. But in the end, justice has been done, or partially done, with the conviction of 2 men out of a much bigger gang of racists responsible for a crime which exposed the incompetence and prejudice of Britain's biggest police force. The anger and disappointment of Stephen Lawrence's parents at the failure of the police was only partially tempered by today's convictions. Anna Adams has more.
A teenager immortalised for all the wrong reasons. Stephen Lawrence was more than a murder victim. He became a symbol for Britain at its most racist. Images from the case became etched on the nation's consciousness, from the brawling suspects to the provocative headlines and the murder scene itself. And at the heart of it, Stephen's parents and their 18 years of campaigning which kept this case open. Doreen and Neville Lawrence enlisted powerful advocates to their cause, and they launched a private prosecution in 1994. That was unsuccessful, but today 2 of the 5 original suspects, Gary Dobson and David Norris, were finally found guilty of his murder. But reactions were mixed outside the court.
How can I celebrate when I know that this day could have come 18 years ago if the police, who were meant to find my son killers, felt so miserable to do so? These are not a reason to celebrate.
There have been several investigations over the last 18 years, during which the Lawrence family have campaigned tirelessly for justice. This prosecution has depended upon previously unavailable scientific technology and techniques, which led to the discovery of the new evidence.
Nothing can undo the fact that back in 1993, the police lost their way with this case very badly. And the opportunity, for example, to gather a really rich hoard of forensic evidence was lost. They just screwed up. And so no arrests for 2 weeks. The defendants had a time to wash, launder their clothes, clean their bathrooms, remove pretty well every trace. As we see, we're down to microscopic traces before any clothes were seized.
The case exposed the deep-rooted problems between police and the black community, as Newsnight found out 2 weeks after the murder.
You can't trust them brothers, man. They pick you up for nothing. Oh, jacking you up and shit just because you're black.
The senior policeman who runs this area was telling me today that the advice he'd give you lot is to think seriously about joining the police force. He hasn't got enough.
Rod Jarman was with the Met for 32 years, and he took the lead on race and diversity issues.
I don't think we are there with the whole issue of race and an understanding, and I think part of that is we never will be, because the dynamics of diversity are constantly changing. The ethnic makeup of London is changing as we speak, and so the issues are constantly evolving into new things. We're in a very different place. We've got a long way to go, and I think when you start talking about the use of a police power and the feeling of it being disproportionate, as long as a particular part of the community feel that they're being policed unfairly, then we won't gain all the confidence, and the police service won't be able to get all of the information and support that it needs.
But the Macpherson inquiry into the case prompted some incredible changes. The law of double jeopardy, which prevented suspects from being tried twice, was scrapped. And without that, Gary Dobson would not have been found guilty today. But there were also much deeper changes to race relations.
This was the first case in which the public had got behind the family of a black victim of murder. Now, that was historic. But I think the implications of the case go wider. I think that people understood that racism was something different and something more complicated than it had appeared before. White people understood this. White people, particularly in institutions, in positions of authority. That the old idea that there were the occasional bad apples who were malicious racists who might be, shaven-headed and attached to extreme organizations, and that was where racism resided. That idea, I think, for most of us has gone.
Sentencing is taking place tomorrow, but the Metropolitan Police say the case is far from closed. They're still looking at 9 other suspects, and they hope the passage of time will give new witnesses the courage to finally come forward.
Now, in a moment, we'll discuss the legacy of this case and what effect, if any, these verdicts will have. But first, let's